This is Heirs to Heresy, Part 7. We're picking up where we left off previously. So, as a recap of the day's events, Esteval made contact with the spy network in Rouen. Elias and Torben went to Alphonse Lelou's house and got roped into his schemes effectively, which involved a duel with a local merchant over some offenses Alphonse had made to both his business and his wife, to which Elias was rather enthusiastic about agreeing to, and Torben very much not, though the latter was effectively goaded isn't quite the right word, but like he's an honorable man, and since Elias asked him to do it, Torben agreed, even though he thought it was dishonorable. The duel took place outside of the city with Gautier Marchand, and despite Alphonse very clearly requesting that he be like thoroughly whipped and embarrassed in the proceedings, Torben made quick, efficient, and light work of the matter, just scoring a pretty basic cut. Since the duel was to first blood, and it could be clearly seen on like Gautier's face, though, even though he lost the duel, he like saw respect in Torben for his handlings. And Elias was very quickly taken in by Alphonse's continued offerings of hospitality, staying at the Lelou house and maneuvering in his own ways to begin finding a means of exploiting Alphonse's offerings to his own ends as well, much to Torben's discomfort. Esteval, meanwhile, made contact with the spy network and through their kind of like chain of information, wanted to pry more into the history of Elias's family, what happened to the Beaumonts, particularly why, if Elias was entered into the Templar order as sort of a placating gesture, were they still rendered like heretics and traitors of the state and had their assets seized and most of their members killed? Uh, and Estelle kind of got a glimpse into some like behind the scenes workings that the Beaumonts possibly having some sort of like long standing occult involvements, and that the machinations of the king uh, chafed against their influence and power and their connections. And also, there is the implication that the Beaumonts may have seen this coming and they might not be as destroyed as they appear to be on the surface. So I'm looking forward very much to seeing how this manifests between Esteval and Elias, if at all. But upon returning to the Basilisk's den, Esteval saw the Teutonic knight they fought against in Paris, the eye patch knight, as the group has called him, leaving the place. In conversation with the barkeep, had learned that the barkeep was questioned about their presence here in the city. Esteval followed this person back, finding a garrison reinforced with recently arrived French soldiers, as well as more of these knights clad in white and black crosses. Upon Torben's arrival, basically, the group has, well, not the group, I should say, Esteval and Torben, through conversing with Milan the barkeep, have learned that the contact they might be looking for is a Welsh woman who frequents the place pretty regularly. And though Milun is uncomfortable with the Templars' presence at his establishment after being questioned by that German knight, has agreed to possibly like arrange for this Welsh woman to leave the tavern at some point and converse with whoever is out there waiting for her. This is all a part of your proddings into a possible means of escape from the immediate environs, getting smuggled on board a ship, hopefully closer to your destination. But all that said, we'll be picking up also with Elias, who is going to be having dinner at the Lelou house tonight, since Elias is fully taken into the offerings of staying with the Lelou family. Um, let's begin first with Torben and Estevao, just to establish a few more facts about what this evening's proceedings are going to look like. Does Torben intend to be part of the lookout group for this contact, or is he leaving that to Estevao and doing something different?
That is a very good question.
Indeed. Well, then let's focus on Estevao for a moment here, just to think about this. So, Estevao, is it your intention to proceed with this tonight as staking outside the Basilisk's den and waiting for this contact, or do you have a different idea in mind?
No, absolutely. I think Estevao is 110% bought into this and will be doing the we'll just post up Aragorn style, across the street or, in a nearby alleyway and just be dark and broody.
Naturally. So, Torben, what are you thinking? What's on your mind?
We saw Eye Patch Night, Hair Eye Patch, or
Mm-hmm.
Estevao did, and that would be
Herr
like a
Augenclap, as I think we ended up
yeah,
calling him last time.
that would be like a thorn in Torben's mind,
Mm.
and uh, he would definitely inquire as to where Estevao may think he might be. Just curious.
Yeah, I want to zoom in on this scene for a little bit then. So perhaps in whatever position across the way from the basilisks, then Astavow, you plan to take up Shakin for the time. Like I imagine, and feel free to interject if you have a different idea here, Ben, that it's a long stretch of mostly Torben being silent before just broaching the subject regarding him.
Silent but fidgety.
Yeah, let's just get the scene a little bit.
Torben's probably taken out his sword and checked it and wiped it down with a cloth about 14 times in the last 12 minutes. Hasn't said anything.
Yeah, and Estevao will still has a couple weapons maybe that need cleaning, but that's very much a morning chore. Um yeah, maybe Estevao is feeding little scraps of dried fish to Monsieur Neville. What's on your mind, soldier?
That night, the German one, where did you see him?
Estevao will give the location without you know without being cagey about it. It was by the docks, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, there's like a garrison by the docks. Although I would say, just as a detail, the number of French soldiers and some knights you saw are more than are likely to be given to any one garrison. But that's the one that you had seen them entering into as a group. The eye patch knight and some of his similarly dressed cohorts.
Yeah, and we'll be forward with all that information as well as saying, you know, uh I don't know how smart it would be to hang in that area unless you were planning to go meet your guards.
My gods, plural.
Well, I'm certain there's more than one interested entity in your well-being.
It is difficult for me to bear this.
Bear what exactly? Your compounded allegiance to the divine, or the fact that someone who gave us quite the reckoning in combat is in the same near proximity?
That.
Ah, personally, I think God would want us to live. continue doing his work.
Then he would have allowed me to beat the fiend.
Now, I was in a great deal of pain that day, but I do seem to recall that it was he who fled.
I couldn't say I was unconscious.
And I was not doing much better, but uh,
You would have
I,
died with your crossbow in your hand. I was
I,
humiliated, Esteval.
we were all caught unprepared. We won't be next time. We know how dangerous this is.
Very well.
Don't let me stop you. It's just, I do want you to understand that if you go throw your life away foolishly in some misguided gesture to escape your wounded pride, you'll be leaving me to deal with Elia.
A fair point. He'll just kind of settle into the seat.
That's a really good scene. Torben, where is your mind currently leaning on these matters?
In terms of
Yeah,
Elia,
like no, in terms of action, just on what you're going to act upon in the immediate future.
he'll he'll stay here. He'll behave. He's been appropriately convinced and chastised.
Mm-hmm. Then we're going to cut away for now to House Lelou. Elias, as a matter of like just setting the scene here, you had intended to have message sent back to the Basilisk's den to Esteval, but everything that happened, Torben volunteered to go instead, and like perhaps in your mind, you would assume, oh yes, of course, Torben and Esteval would be returning because we're having dinner at the Lelou house.
Yeah.
But they don't come back. Like they don't come back at all during the night, at least in terms of like when dinner would probably start getting served. Is this a thing that concerns you, or are you mostly just like, okay, cool, well, I guess I'm having dinner while they're doing whatever they're doing?
Um, I think more than concern, it offends me. I don't think that it even like crosses his mind that something like awful happened
Mm-hmm.
because like Torben and Esteval are like so capable and they're also God's chosen soldiers. So that's not going to happen, but he saw how Torben was looking, so he thinks that it's a rejection of this hospitality that they've been given. So honestly, more than like, oh my God, my buddies are probably bleeding death through the street. He's like, these bitches would rather stay in that pigsty than dine here with like respectable company.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think I just want to just just cut into the dinner, like just as it's happening. What are you wearing? Like, I mean, I think we did say previously that Alphonse was like, "Oh yes, we'll get you some decent
Mhm.
clothes to put on."
I mean, I would absolutely love because I think that's like the most horrible option that because the duel was because some clothes were made or like made or sold by Gautier and then also like the wife thing happened, right? But initially he
Yeah,
didn't want to pay for.
yeah. Like, Alphonse paid for like some like very nice clothes, was not satisfied with them, and refused to pay for them.
Yeah. So I would love to think that he did actually get them and that he's like that he and Elias like did this thing of like, oh, you should have them. And Elias was like, no, vow of poverty. And then he was like, oh, but I'm gonna throw them out anyway. I was gonna donate them anyway. And then Elias is like, oh, well, I guess in that case. And I'm imagining that these are like perfectly fine, beautiful clothes.
Perfectly
And
fine. Yeah, they're
he
very
was just
nice.
an asshole who didn't want to
Just a complete
pay,
asshole.
right?
Yeah, nothing
Yeah,
wrong with
so I
them.
think I am wearing like those like very fine, like very nice clothes that this Gautier made. And I like also made it like, oh, like I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth. So like I'm not gonna say anything, but wink wink, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I think that's what I'm wearing over my Templar tunic, even.
Okay, interesting. Um, Dinner is certainly something, not the food, the company, because in addition to Alphonse, his mother, the lady Faustine Leloup, is dining with you all as well. You're being served by Romain. Food's good. I mean, like it's there's fish. There's probably some like roasted fowl, and plenty of wine to go around. But the Leloup family has a larger like kind of like dining table that's definitely could seat at least like five more people in sort of like this like kind of like main little hall they have at the base of their house. Although it's just you three dining being served by Romain and probably a couple other house servants. And Lady Faustine is a pretty like severe looking woman. She is dressed very modestly, like almost like a nun, like just like head like wrapping and all. Very just like thin pressed line, like frown creases in her face, and just has a crucifix around her neck. Just this woman just has the air of like simmering, but she doesn't say much. And she doesn't need to because Alphonse probably does a lot of just like loud, just chatting.
Mhm.
I think in the middle of this scene, as we cut to it, he's just like mostly like largely just going about like the duel as it was. He's like he's pouring himself like more wine, and is just kind of talking so much about nothing, as we've seen him just kind of do, just blathering his mouth off. Um, Elias, what's your role in this conversation as this dinner is unfolding?
Yeah. Um, I mean, we're gonna make some entanglements here because I know that Lulu has power over me, but who has power over Lulu? Well, the matriarch of the house. So since that she looks like so severe and like religious, given like how you've sort of described her, I think
Mhm.
like Elias would have started with like a beautiful grace, and he's just like very much like the picture of the boy you want to bring home, right? Just like a good, um, very polite, a very good like guest. And I would kind of like to roll maybe an insight on her to see like what Elia, like he will basically like he'll try some things, and then if she reacts positively, I'm gonna do more of that. Is
I don't
basically like I want to get her on my side.
I don't think this warrants a test because I don't find failure interesting here. I'm
Hmm.
fine just kind of like answering like the questions that you might have about her, the things that you might be able to glean from her. Because I mean, like knowing your insight is like it's at a +3, so it's pretty good. Yeah, I don't think anything on the surface is necessarily like risky or
Hmm.
compelling to make this a test. So if you have
Yeah.
any questions, I'll kind of reveal information from there.
Yeah, I think I want to know like what I feel the relationship between the mother and Alphonse is and how much like I feel like power she has over him. Like what can she
Mm.
make him do or just like not necessarily as in like I order you to do this, but as in I feel that, out of shame he would not do certain things if he knew his mother wouldn't like it. Like that kind
Mm.
of power.
Yeah, it's certainly not that relationship. It's nothing outright hostile, but there's just like because Alphonse proceeds completely as if just there's like nothing in the world that is wrong. I mean, this guy likes to go slumming it in the common quarters, dressed up as a commoner, just to drink in like rowdier taverns. But here in his home, he's very laid back. He's is happy to talk about all the things of noblemen that you are familiar with, and his mother is very quiet, like not like a quiet of like she is submissive in this like house dynamic, but that she is like just not at all like interested in anything about this. But there is that edge slightly of like dissatisfaction, but nothing that can really be done about it. So she just occasionally, she eats her food slowly, minding herself. She notably does not drink wine. She drinks water. With as the evening goes on, maybe has some sort of like simple cider that she also probably drinks as well, non-alcoholic. But the relationship. Alphonse doesn't really seem to regard her much. Occasionally he'll lean over and be like, and as I was telling you, mother, but like, and that's really it. Um, and and seeing in the chat here about asking if Faustine is a widow. No, this is something that is probably, if not evident or have been brought up before. Actually, no, I think Alphonse did mention it before.
Yeah, there's a sick father,
The
right?
Lord, yeah, Lord Adolphe is his name. Is ill. He's taken ill. He's bedridden. So there are like moments in this evening when like like the servants are taking up like a platter of food to be taken to the Lord's bedchamber, and this is like one of the few like rare moments where Lady Faustine like speaks. And it's just like, and remember not to bring him a drop of wine. And even like Alphonse just like, oh, mother, if he hasn't eaten the last platter, you're just wasting food on him. And she doesn't regard that at all. But there are like mentions throughout the evening of like the Lord being unwell and something going on there.
Right.
But she is otherwise just like this severe kind of woman.
Is Alphonse going to inherit if the Lord dies?
Do
I know that? Do I know that? Okay.
He is the heir.
Okay.
He doesn't necessarily seem giddy about like the state his father is in. He seems just like it's a fact of life, like nothing to be done.
Interesting.
I do think at one point though, just by the way you've presented yourself, the Lady Faustine will like turn her severe gaze on you and just saying, "You are a devout young man."
Indeed. It is a rarer thing to come by these days.
It is not often that my Alphonse shares the company with such devout young men. And here's a question for you. Has it at all come up in the conversation, whether like you think Alphonse would have brought it up or something you would have mentioned, that you are a nobleman of and like what house it has come to? Like, how have you been presented in the social dynamic of their family?
I do feel like he would have said that I was a nobleman to sort of like justify why I'm at the table, right?
Yeah, but it's been like it's vague, like nothing else has been said.
I think whether it's, and I think it's one of those things where Elia isn't clear, is it to protect me or protect himself, that he isn't mentioning like, oh, it's a baume, because you might not want to bring a baume to your table.
The Lady Faustine had, there's like another like long just silence and is from her end as dinner resumes. But when she does cut back in, she says, "Your accent is unusual for the region. Where is your family from?"
Well, I grew up mostly in France, but my family traveled a lot. So they picked up quirks and then linguistics from all over, I presume.
And where in France are your family's
Paris.
holdings? Paris. I'm not fond of that city myself.
Well, believe me, me neither any longer. I don't think I shall return there.
Are you wed, young man? Any engagements? Are you the eldest in your family?
I am, but I have taken an oath to God that I shall have no wife.
You are a minister.
Of a sort, I suppose, but mostly simply devout. One doesn't need a title to follow in the steps of Jesus and God. It is simply the right thing to do.
And you are here in Rouen for godly purposes or familial?
Travel. Simple travel. We shall not stay here long.
Frivolity is the belonging of the youth. I find it very important for one to set down roots.
I would agree with you.
What of your family? Sisters, cousins, prospects?
A cousin, married.
Well, that is good. How young?
Not much older than myself.
Good. It is good and proper that young women secure a place for themselves. She continues just back under her silence, eating away. And Alphonse can't help but roll his eyes a little bit.
Interesting.
Let's cut
Do
back
I,
over. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. No, I was gonna ask, do I feel like, because you said there was a dissatisfaction, do I feel like it's like general life or like about Alphonse particular?
Let me answer in this way. You see a woman who is so just kind of like simmering and severe and devout. And clearly, this is a woman you could see comfortably quoting scripture. And her son is a fucking wastrel, and just sees it all as frivolity. And so that's kind of what you're getting right now.
All right.
Is there there's an impropriety at play here, and she's a very
Absolutely.
judgmental woman. But the way you're presenting yourself so far, she seems to not be sharing that hard edge with you, although it's still she's quite a cold woman.
Mhm.
I want to cut away to go back over to the other group. You've settled in and you spend some time now watching the basilisk's den from across the street. You can see the patrons like coming in and out as the evening darkens. The night is chillier than the day, though there are no signs of rain on the horizon. And how do you pass the time?
Compulsively cleaning weapons.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. After, I want to say, perhaps a couple of hours after sundown, you're watching the place and you watch a woman step out. Not the only woman that you've seen coming in or out of the basilisk den, though since you're keeping this place under careful watch, she is the only one who's like stepped out, clearly like looking around. Like this woman definitely is has the expression of someone who being like, I'm looking for something out here, and doesn't look exactly like super pleased about it. To describe her a bit more, yeah, she has like these like just like this like curling like mop of like brownish red hair, a ruddy complexion, though it's hard to tell if that's from any alcohol or just because she has a ruddy complexion. And it's just a very stocky woman, kind of like built a little bit like a square. And her like clothing is not necessarily like effeminate in terms of like how most women on the street dress. It is certainly more of like practical and hardy. Like she is someone who clearly just like does a bit of a bit of labor. And she just is like stepping out of the tavern, like looking around, kind of like slightly pissed off of like, I'm out here, what the fuck? Um, what do you do?
I think Esteval will like nudge Torben to get his attention and be like, "Have you ever seen a Welsh woman before? Do you think that looks like one?"
He'll just turn to look at Esteval. What would a Welsh woman?
You while you're having this conversation, you actually hear like this woman like shout as like a couple of like passersby like bump into her as they're entering the tavern. She like yells out with a bit of ferocity in terrible French. She says, "Fuck your mouth." It is what the translation comes to, and just it's up in their face, and they pass on. But like you figure yeah, that's her. Her French is really bad, like Nilan described.
Yeah, yeah. Um, then with that, it'll be like, no, that's her. And Esteval will, I think, step out and go for the approach, with just hail her from kind of afar. Excuse me, miss. Well, mademoiselle.
Are you speaking French?
Yes. Does Esteval know
She
English?
she turns on you, and again, in like very poorly accented French, just says, like, she like looks at you, inconvenienced, huffs and says, I don't speak French.
Uh, then Esteval will respond back like in French, but other languages. Uh,
I'd say that she says like um obviously English or Spanish
oh,
would be the options on the table here.
well, if she speaks Spanish,
Yeah.
Esteval, okay. Then Esteval in
I think
uh
actually like she's like seeing like your Castilian complexion, or Portuguese, I should say. She does say like she's the one to prompt it in like switching to like a more passing Spanish, though it's still like rougher around the edges. She's just being like, "Do you speak Spanish?"
yes, of course.
Praise the fucking Lord. And says, "Then speak. What do you want? Who are you?"
Uh if you don't mind, we should get out of the streets, but I do have a
Oh,
request for you.
not the first time I've heard that from a man.
Right.
Barkeep said I was out here to meet someone who was supposedly offering something interesting. That going to be you?
I need your help. Not in a let's go in the alley and discuss it kind of way.
Why is it worth my time?
Uh, step back for a second. She's just a smuggler. We don't know that she has any association with the
She
Templars
No,
specifically,
yeah,
right?
she is the contact to the smuggler
Oh,
you're
right,
looking
right, right,
for.
right, right,
So
right,
like she's someone who knows how to get in touch with them, but like you don't know what anything else about this woman other than she's Welsh and rude.
right. Yeah, so like we don't really have anything to offer her, do we? Hmm, that's a problem. We'll deal with that in a second.
Mm.
Um, I need a smuggler.
She just eyes you for a moment, not breaking eye contact, but despite only fixing her eyes on one place, you can tell that this like she's taking like stock of you, like taking the measure of you. And for like a long moment, she just like nods, curses a little bit in Welsh, and just says, "Fine, to your alleyway then." And just like you two walk off. Let's take a quick 5 minute break. So the contact follows you back Estevao. Um, and she comes like follows you. She sees Torben and she just like says, even though I mean, I don't think she says it in Spanish. I think she does say it in Welsh. I will still translate it for the amusement of the court, for the court, but she does say like, "Fuck, you're a big fella." Like, um, looks you up and down, and then like switches. And I imagine Torben doesn't speak Spanish, or does he? At least, yeah, nothing there.
I doubt
Gotcha,
it. Yeah.
gotcha. She points at him, looks at you and says, "The big fellow speaks Spanish too."
We'll look at Torben for a second, notice the blank expression, and then uh no, I'll translate.
Great. Oh, what is this about? Why am I here?
We have to get a few people out of France.
A few
And
people. Okay, sure. Why? How many? What for? I'd like really to know the specifics.
I was hoping this would just be a simple transaction of you set a price, we pay it, and you get us out of France.
I'm not the bloody smuggler, boy. I'm just someone who knows how to get you in touch with the right people. And so far, I'm not hearing a compelling reason to go telling anybody. Okay, you want to acquire the services of someone that I know and have worked with before. Now, I guess I do have a question. Why? No, we'll start with a better one. How then did you know to seek me out? I don't go wearing it like a bloody banner through the streets.
Actually, how did we? Was it
You
Jack and
mostly
Malay?
just sussed it out, like that there. Well, yeah, like it was the farmers had mentioned that there was like a smuggler in the city, but like someone who like frequents his business, like hangs out the at contact hangs out here. It's just been a series of like little tiny breadcrumbs you followed and deduced that it was her.
If you're worried about your any sort of cover or illicit activity being blown, we did have to put in a great deal of effort simply to come to understand that you exist. I don't think you're in danger if that's what you're worried about.
Certainly wasn't on the table before, but nowadays. But that aside, fair. Okay.
All right.
What do you she like holds up her hand and be like, no, I'm speaking. And she says, like, why should I trust you?
We'll take another like long look at Torben.
Does she need to trust us? We will pay.
That's what I've been trying to say. I
Trust in our coin.
What language is he saying that in?
French.
I got coin. I heard that one. Okay, good. So we're saying that
are you
payment.
Yes, are you do you just work with smugglers on a good faith basis because you trust in their mission?
No, but I'd like to know that the people that I'm sometimes passing along the chain aren't going to rat anyone out, to be some members of the secret guard force or what have you. I don't know how they handle things here.
We're no allies of the French, if that's your concern.
I couldn't care less, as long as you're not allies of the bloody English.
We don't really have a lot of business with the English.
Great. Then we're going to be swift friends. Let's talk then about what you can pay so I can know if this is indeed a lucrative deal I should pass along to a friend of mine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, what would your services or your friends' services cost for 3 people to get out of Rouen?
3 people to get out of here.
And
How
one
far?
cat.
And 1 cat. Fair.
South, any place south along the coast. We're headed towards I don't say Libsyn, but Portugal.
That's a long way off.
We don't need to get the whole way. We just need to get out of Royan. Just in that direction, however far we can get.
I can't say exactly then how much might be asked of, but tell you, how about this? What can you pay?
Does Esteval have a good idea of how much he can pull from the spy network as like necessary resources?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, that's a good one. Let me actually take a look at the thing I know about this, because it was the supplies thing. Yeah, I would say that, like, just because it's pretty vague about like a vital piece of equipment, a necessary item or something like that, I do think you could use that to like secure enough of like something lucrative enough to buy you passage on the smuggler ship.
I'm assuming not to Libsyn, but
no, not to Lisbon. No, not to Lisbon, but like definitely like to like where the smuggler is willing to take you, which I have, that's something in mind, but she wouldn't know that.
Then I think Esteval will simply say just enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm. I think she
uh,
like sees something in your like in the way that you hold yourself, where she's like, okay, she believes you. She
I
just
mean,
nods.
yeah, is this a good time to like flash the cross? Yeah, yeah. We'll when we say enough, I think that's when we'll draw back our cloak and show the Templar cross. Why not?
She just mutters under her breath, "Fuck me," and like looks back at you and says, "Bloody hell, people are looking high and low for you, lot."
I
What?
trust that. Uh, well, then that puts us in accord. We don't rat you out. You don't rat us out.
Oh, dangerous bargain you're making there, boy. But I'll take your point. Yeah, I hear that Templar folk have piles of treasure. I don't reckon you're paying in piles of treasure, but clearly you're desperate and worth something. How do I know you really are Templars?
I don't know if there's an adequate way to answer that question. Uh, would you like me to pray in front of you?
I think
Get
I'm
on my
good.
knees?
She gives another grimace. I really think I'm good.
There you go. So
Fine, fine.
I don't think anybody would willingly claim to be a Templar given the current situation. You are aware of what's going on, right?
I've heard, seen a lot of
It's
boats coming in off the river.
then then you understand how desperate of a situation we're in.
I do. Fine. Okay. She like looks at Torben in very bad French, says, I do your help.
Torben will lean in and say under his breath, "Her accent is delightful."
Mutter right back like in French, I think she's fond of you.
Of course she is. Have you seen me?
Incredible. Let's cut back to Elias's dinner. I don't really have much else to say on the dinner front. So if there's any other things you were curious about, now's the time to ask. Otherwise, I'm going to shift to after dinner.
Um, yeah, not the dinner itself. I have like a high level court intrigue I want to try and
Okay.
share with you.
Okay.
Because I think it might help us if we know like what I'm aiming for high level, so we can
Sure.
sort of break that down and like know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing.
Mhm.
So here's what I want to do.
Okay.
I think after dinner, I want to, very proper, very gentlemanly, very polite, escort Faustine to, a tea, a walk in the garden, what have you. And then I want to drop a story about how nowadays, or like how, um, like a lot of assets of my family were actually donated to the church and not given to the heir. And basically, what I want to do with that is I want to plant it in her head that she doesn't have to give any of her wealth to Alphonse, but she could give it to a higher purpose. She could give it to the church. And then when that's idea, and like I want to be very clear, like Elia at no point will like say like, oh, you should do this. He like wants to just have a conversation and plant that idea in her head. And then when that idea is in her head and she will maybe like start dropping hints, she will start saying that to Alphonse. I want to go to Alphonse and be like, man, I heard like something so shocking. There was like this family and they like fully like didn't even give anything to their heir because he was like too frivolous and like the mom had like such a bad bond with him. And like he didn't even like own anything, right? He just got like fully disowned. Again, not saying like that's gonna happen to you, but planting that idea because what I want to do is then like also drop like, oh man, I just realized something. We put you in such a difficult position because people saw you with Torben. So if you rat us out, oh my God, people will know that you worked with the Templars. Oh my God, I'm so sorry to do that to you. Oh my God, what have we done to you? So then basically he starts realizing like if I rat them out, my mom is going to use that to not give me an inheritance. So my best option is to just get them the fuck out of Rouen so I'm safe and my life is safe. Does that make sense what I'm getting at?
Yeah, it does. I see. And man, am I glad that I've leaned into just a real like zoom in, zoom out mentality. Thanks to the variety of games I play.
Yeah,
And just because I'm coming off of the heels of an evening session of Deathmatch Island, I'm like, great, yeah, all of that, let's resolve it in one roll. Because I do think that is not only an efficient use of our time, but the most narratively interesting to encapsulate all of this. Um,
absolutely.
I do think that, um, hmm, I mean, I think I'm gonna be just kind of upfront about it. I think that you very much run the risk of being put out of favor with one of these family members,
Yeah,
which will
fully.
mean your pursuit points are going up.
Absolutely. Super fair. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I'm just trying to think if there are any other circumstances at the moment that would give you an advantage or a disadvantage. I don't think you're in an advantageous place. Even
Mhm.
I think you're not
We,
in a I think you're not in a disadvantageous place um
yeah,
with any of this yet, but nothing here is like necessarily putting you over the line or giving you an extra edge.
agreed. Yeah, I think we've set up that I have the social positioning to have like enough of their trust and ear to start planning the stories, but not that they're like fully like, oh, Elia says this, so, you know, yeah, yeah,
What are
fully
you
agree.
thinking? Courage plus persuade?
Yeah, that sounds fair to me.
Okay. Your ultimate goal here, you said, just to clarify, because just that whole conversation with your mother, with the mother aside, the ultimate goal is to let that drip feed back and allow you to then have leverage over Alphonse.
Yeah, I
Like you're not
basically want
actually
to.
intending for his mother to give money to the church.
No, I don't care. I basically want because they already have a strained relationship. I basically want enough leverage there for Alphonse to realize like I can't actually rat them out because that would like dishonor me so much that my mom might not let me inherit, and I obviously don't want that. So then my best and safest option, so that Elia doesn't say anything either, is to just get them out of Royan. Like I get them horses, I give them money for a boat, like whatever. But he himself is gonna come to the idea of, oh, I just need to get them out of here because I'm like so smart and taking care of myself is basically what I want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this degree of like social maneuvering, especially with people you've just met, and one of them is kind of like skirting the edge of blackmail, this sounds kind of like a challenging ordeal. So I'm going to set the target number for 18.
18.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, you have a +8. So,
Yeah.
and you have faith points to fuck around with
I
if you so
do
desire.
have fate points. It's a +8, so I would need a 10 on the dice.
That's right.
All right. Let's go. It's a double 7 crit, baby.
Incredible. Um, First of all, take an advance point.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I love this a lot.
This is so bad. Elia is such a bad person.
You do this with just such skill. I mean, it's almost like skillful enough to be like questionably dishonorable. You know what I mean? Like, but like, no, it's, I think we just see these vignettes of you having just conversation in the company of Faustine, I forgot her name
Faustine,
for a
yeah.
moment. Yeah, Faustine, Lady Faustine afterwards. And just true to your word, like you never suggest anything. You just guide the conversation and kind of let her follow down those, particular rabbit holes. I mean, especially because I think she'd even reveal in the conversation that, her husband prior to his illness, has been like a lifelong servant of the drink, and that, is always been taking the line and just has just kind of been a lecherous fellow. And she's always been more godly. And then like she's not like a shine. She doesn't see you as like the shining beacon of conversational delight, but it is, as far as this woman is concerned, like you are possibly a very good influence on her son, and seem like a good friend, and maybe like directly like suggests of being like, yes, perhaps, my boy could learn a thing or two from you. And then we contrast that with a later, like much later in the evening, like probably, Alphonse is pouring even more drink when it's just you two, like his mother's gone to bed. Most of the house staff are just kind of like settling down. Most of them are probably in bed by now. It's just you two probably like remain up and about at Alphonse's beck and call. And let's just kind of zoom into that moment, right? Where you're just he's like going on about being like, I know you've bathed, but I think tomorrow, maybe the day after, I think I should show you Florette's bathhouse. It is positively divine. I think you would love it, Elias. I know I do. She works wonders, her and her girls. He's sipping from his wine.
Yeah, and I think like Elia probably also had some, probably more than he had in like a little while, or at least he's kind of pretending that, right? And I think he's like, oh, that does sound wonderful. Oh, it's been such a rough journey. And between you and I, the other two, well, they do not know about the delights of life as we do.
That's right. You know, I mean no offense, but I am rather happy that neither of your compatriots showed up for dinner. I mean, they seem like fun company. The big one is definitely a capable man to have in a clinch like that. But I mean, come on, civilized company, people of worth, just they probably would have spoiled mother's appetite and just made the conversation all about whatever humble little things they wanted to discuss or pick apart. I don't know what your friends talk about.
Well, swords and drink, pretty much.
Don't all men.
Don't they always? Besides, it's probably better that you're not seen too much with Torben. He strikes a figure and uh, it's probably nothing. It's probably nothing.
Fuck off, Elias. What is probably nothing?
Oh, I just mean, well, I just think Torben is the sort of person that they might remember, and he did win that jewel for you, so I'm just no. I'm sure Gautier wouldn't tell anyone about this man, and it won't come out that we're Templars, so you're all good. As I said, it's nothing.
What are you on about, Elias? What?
Absolutely. Don't. I just, you know me. I just worry. I just worry too much. Don't even worry about it.
What? What the fuck does Gautier have to do with any of this?
Nothing, as I said. He's just, well, he did see you with me and Torben, but
Yes, but neither of you were wearing anything. We put you
no,
in different.
exactly. So as long as nobody knows we're Templars, you're all good.
Right.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. It's nothing.
Yes. Yeah, it's nothing. It's nothing at all.
No. And there is, I think he does let sort of that beat like kind of like draw out, takes,
Mhm.
like a long sip, and then says, oh, Florette's bathhouse. Now that does sound nice.
Though he seems to be rather out of the mood all of a sudden, as he seems to be thinking about something and occasionally just goes silent. But other than that, I think the night winds down. Um, in the matters regarding this woman in the alleyway, you two, it does seem like okay, cool. She's agreeable. She's going to like. I'm debating actually. One second. Unless there was anything else you were going to bring up, she does say that she is going to ask her contact her she's going to put in the word about it, and then she'll want to come back to tell you like all right, cool. Here's where you're meeting. So she's like, cool. Meet back outside the tavern noon tomorrow. And that if all goes well, you will be able to meet with the smuggler shortly thereafter.
Tomorrow noon. Got it. Should I bring the money then, or
She shrugs and just says, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to have you pay up front, but you probably want to discuss things first. So,
that's a fair point. You'll have to forgive me. I'm not well versed in uh this.
darling, I can tell. Fine. Tell the big one the same.
Uh I look over at Torben and I say, she wishes we had more time in the city so she could get to know you better.
Oh, oh, oh,
You know,
yes.
deep regrets.
What? Is it an inconvenient time for him? Can't do noon? Why does he look all
No,
shocked and
no,
befuddled?
we can do noon. Don't worry.
Good.
But he
Good.
was saying that uh well, never mind.
All right, then. Good. I'm going back to my drink now.
And we do hope you enjoy your drink. God be with you and all that.
Ah, fuck off. She like waves her hand, like walks off across the way.
She seemed nice.
She did. Almost makes it a shame we have to leave.
We should go collect Elia.
Should we?
He has the cup.
Ah, good point.
Speaking of the cup, I remember something I wanted to ask. Elias, what do you do with the cup? Like, you have it in a bag. Have you been carrying that with you? Like, where is that as you're having a conversation at House Lelou?
It's on Elia's person always.
Yeah. I think honestly, I do think at some point, Alphonse, he's just being like, whether this is before or after that, I don't know, but he just kind of does at one point, like, clock that you've been carrying around that sack, and he just goes, what's in the bag? I meant to ask that before. I just had other things on my mind.
Ah, well, my dear Alphonse, you must give me some mystique.
Okay, let me guess. Is it the head of Saint John the Baptist?
Mm?
Is it a shiny bag full of treasure?
Mm?
Okay, fine. Be that way. What, is it something secret?
Perhaps. Or perhaps it's just something really boring.
Perhaps.
It's
Fine.
a satchel for traveling, Alphonse. It's not exactly interesting stuff.
Mm. But let us talk about interesting stuff. You've been sworn in to this now heretical order, forced to give up all earthly desires, swear your vows of chastity. But come now, Elias, 6 years ago, at that wedding, we conversed a great deal about matters of women. Surely, surely a man such as you has courtships. No, no, even better. Surely someone like you has been inconvenienced by your oath? Was there a woman?
Well, I do think, Alphonse, that that is entirely the point of the oath. That it inconveniences me and that I must realize that, yes, uh, it would be nice to give in to temptation, but what is one moment against the eternity in God's presence?
Oh, don't be so fucking boring, Elias. Come on, I'm just asking for those little tidbits about what you're going to miss out on. After all, if you can't plow it, maybe I can.
Well, you would have to travel rather a far deal.
Oh, and I hate going anywhere that inconveniences me. That's fair enough and fine. Fine, fine. You can live your boring life.
Well, I
But
will
not.
leave all the pleasures of the world to you, Alphonse.
I'm sure you will. All right. I've had plenty and I need bed. Just if your friends show up, just direct them towards the mats back out of the kitchen. You know where they are. I showed you earlier.
Of course I will. You go to sleep. You don't want your mother finding you like this in the hallway.
No, I do not. He gets up and excuses himself.
Yeah. And I think we do get a shot of like as soon as he leaves the room, like Elias's smile just like falls off his face so hard it would like shatter if it was a physical thing. And he just kind of like sits there seething that this Alphonse dared to talk about his Florence that way for just a moment. And then he kind of gathers himself and he's like, okay, it worked.
Yeah. Just before Esteval and Torben will come to find you, the two of you do are like walking down like the street towards their townhouse when like torchlight is visible and like a big contingent of guards come walking by and you were like just barely able to like get off of the street and like hide in the crook of an alleyway before they walk past. But like this is no like night patrol of city guards. This is like a full on like force of soldiers moving probably between garrisons, kind of like some nightly movements being happened. You didn't really get many of the details, but you did hear a couple of like murmured like phrases from a few of the individuals, just making it feel like more militant than local, something just like the motions of something that are happening around here. But nonetheless, you can arrive at House Lalou. Let's cut to this scene when the two of you reconvene with Elias, whether that's like probably around like the back door or the front door. I don't know, but just the moment of you two reconvening or you three.
Yeah, I think immediately like the door opens and Elliot goes like, where were you two? What happened? You missed dinner.
We were arranging our passage out of here.
Oh, you found them?
We found the contact. We're set to meet with the smuggler themselves tomorrow at noon.
Hmm. All right. He kind of like looks around just to check, if there's no servants or anyone there. Well, I think that Alphonse himself will help us get along just fine in maybe a day or so.
So I don't know what the price smuggler is going to demand of us, but
Possibly
we'll
less expensive than our dignity.
Esteval will like shift a glance from Torben to Elia. Like,
Elia did not get that jab at all. He's just like, mhm. And I think you can see Torben that he is wearing that double, by the way, like over his Templar outfit. Well, you wouldn't know he's wearing that underneath, but that is what you can see, not the Templar shirt.
There's a very deliberate, like, elevator eyes as he says that dignity moment line.
Right. Well, uh, I'm afraid I
Well,
don't have
whatever
any.
money you need, I think Alphonse is going to give it to us.
Really?
Yes.
This. You'll have to forgive my suspicions, but I can't imagine he'll be doing this out of the kindness of his heart.
No, of course not. He'll be doing it because he believes that is the best way to preserve his self-preservation.
Are you threatening him?
No, Esteval. I would never do such, well, I would do such a thing, but that isn't even necessary here. I just planted some ideas that perhaps it is better for him not to be seen with Templars. And we were publicly seen helping him, so it would probably not be in his best interest to rat us out, would it? Very nasty the way these connections seem to go so deep sometimes. Guards are not known for being kind to people who they suspect.
See, it's probably a good idea we get out of here sooner than later. There was a garrison marching by outside. We don't have much time left. I don't think Monsieur Neville really quite likes it here anymore.
I kind of like if there's like a shot to Nivelle eating like really nice scraps from like this table, not giving a shit that this is a shithead noble. Just like, ooh, meat.
Mhm.
Well, it's not so bad here, is it?
It's not where we need to be.
It is not, of course not. We need to move on, of course.
Then its relative comfort is irrelevant.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah, you're right. Irrelevant. We don't need all this.
What is the name of our order, Elia?
I'm not
I,
going to say it out loud here, but I know what is it you're implying?
it is not the comfortable brothers who sit upon padded chairs and dine at fancy tables.
Oh, so just because I am not doing my part in the filth of the street doesn't mean I'm helping us along? It's
You had
also
me
not
fight
the
an innocent man.
you dueled a peasant, which is perfectly acceptable.
To whom?
The world.
For all the studying of that book you do, perhaps you need to pay closer attention.
How how dare you?
I'm going to bed. No. Leave.
I'll immediately turn to Esteban and say, "What is wrong with him?"
I'll take first watch.
Fine. Fine, you both be like that then. Yes, certain. If there's someone here that should learn more about the fucking Bible, it's me, and I'll storm off.
Monsieur Neville just looks at you, Esteval, and gives you a little, ow.
No, I agree. That's a good point.
The following day, you meet outside the Basilisk's Den with your contact. And the woman, her name is Lynn, by the way, Lynn, tells you that, okay, the contact has agreed to meet with you. Or rather, the smuggler has agreed to meet with you. And there's only one wrinkle in this is that it's by the docks, which is where a lot of soldiers are milling about. And a lot of the French forces have been congregating. And some ships have been like inspected. Here's the deal with this situation. The smuggler understands there's a bit of heat on this matter and is not going to have you meet on like a ship or immediately nearby, but it's still like in the relative proximity of the docks. So I do think that however this is going to be approached, some sort of test is going to be involved, just for the sake of like you're kind of like walking into like where the noose is tightening the most, and even if it's on the edge, you haven't really had like this many like forces at hand since you were escaping Paris.
Yeah,
So
let's go.
knowing the rough address and like the location, and knowing that you're kind of like walking into the lion's den, as it were, or at least getting near it. How what is your collective approach to this? To not be seen or perhaps interfered with by the increased guard presence in the city, or even like recognize that, like God forbid, right? Like,
Well, the good news is God will forbid it. So, I mean, we've got that part covered.
mm-hmm.
I mean, apparently not, because apparently nobody here knows the Bible if Elia doesn't know it. Um, honestly, I feel like Elia is like stealth isn't gonna work because that's just gonna make us look more suspicious. So he does look like really nice and noble here. So he's like planning to more bluff his way out of it. That would be his approach. To basically be like, I'm just a nobleman, like inspecting things or like doing a merchant contact. These are my bodyguards, whatever. And like you can inspect what you want, but even guards would be maybe not as keen on, inconveniencing someone who looks like they have money and connections to trouble them, um, rather than, like just some suspicious looking dudes in the shadows. Know what I mean? But I'm open to other approaches, especially like if people want to roll.
I mean, I'm kind of fully in the camp of no one would suspect people pretending to belong there. Uh, because smart Templars would stay away from the most heavily guarded area. Why would Templars come here of all places? So yeah, but just pretend like we belong, right?
Okay. Well, I'm going to say one person can roll here for this. We're going to set up a basic test to kind of determine the group approach, and then aiding if possible. One thing I will note, though, is Elias has obviously is wearing noble clothes for the first time, is running the least amount of risk of being like detected. And Torben, are you just kind of in that same sort of like armed, but not necessarily heralding anything like outwardly? Okay. And I assume Esteval's been carrying on as usual. I don't think that's going to be any major consideration in this. Um, let's hear possibly what attribute and skill might be applied to this, and then who will be taking sort of point.
If Elia is rolling, then I would say courage and persuade. And it's sort of like that passive persuade where it's like, like I'm obviously not arguing with people that I am a noble and this and that, but like the way that I bear myself is like persuading people to sort of buy into this. Like a bluff check almost.
Oh, like maybe that like with like guards questioning people coming in and out of the docks area, and you've
Yeah,
been
and
like,
I'm
I'm
like,
on business, like get the fuck out of my
exactly.
way, like I am a busy
Yeah,
man.
and because I
Okay.
have Alphonse, like I could maybe like, drop that name or like drop some connections.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've, probably talked with him about like some merchants here and there. Like I can throw those
Yep.
names, like I will have enough information to fully sell that I'm just here for business, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to go about it. Then, Elias, you can take point. However, none of your friends can persuade. So you'll just be doing this flat. Before you roll, do you want to spend any faith points to get additional benefits?
Um, do I have to decide now or after the roll?
It generally is before, but I have said that I'm fine with you doing it after, but I do like to front load it in case there is any benefits up front. But this is going to be a plus 8 from you. So I mean, like,
What's the difficulty? Is it a
oh,
challenging?
yeah, I'm thinking that just given the fact that none of you are outwardly suspicious necessarily, this just requires a bit of effort. So it's only a 15.
Okay. I'll leave it for now. If I need it, I might use it, but I think a 15
Yeah, if
with a
this was
plus 8.
a checkpoint being maintained by those German
Yeah.
knights, it would be a lot worse for you guys. It's not though. This
Yeah.
is a lot of rank and file city guards, not the soldiers that have supplemented the ranks.
Yeah. So that means I need a 7 on the dice, correctly?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
11 + 8.
Well, that is a 13 on the dice plus 8, so a
Yeah,
21.
you got it. Yeah, exactly. The scene plays out as we described there. There are members of the city watch who are very like the city guards are being put on the periphery while like the actual like hard work, which is there are like soldiers and knights boarding vessels and like searching holds. And like it's like full on like search and seizures things going on. Nothing's necessarily being seized at the moment, but they seem to put the Royan forces kind of on the outs of it to be like, you don't fuck this up, just interrogate people coming in and out of the yard. And so like you do get interrogated. You, I would say, put up the front, but you really don't. You kind of earnestly can convey the truth of you being somewhat of a petulant noble, but you're able to talk your way through and you get to reconvene with Lynn outside of this like little like side like kind of like corner side shop like with its like windows like let it over and nods you inside. The interior is very cramped. It smells kind of briny, although you don't necessarily see an immediate source for that. You wonder if just enough sailors have come through this place that their nautical sense have just worked their way into the woodwork. But there are some like nets hanging up in the rafters. And it just kind of seems to be like not like a pub or a tavern. It just is like, if anything, this looks just kind of like what you'd imagine like a smoking parlor kind of thing would be, just not fancy. Like there's just like a sense of like people congregate here socially, whether this is some sort of like office for business or whatever, hard to say. It's very vague. But that might be part of the draw. And Lynn leads the three of you into this little, back room where there is a gentleman there, bearded, kind of like salt crusted features, though clearly a man of like means and wealth. However, he's that kind of person who's like, no matter how fine you dress him up, he gives off the vibe of like ne'er-do-well. Like this man is like probably slit throats. Like this is someone probably gruff and like no bullshit. And he, says something in Welsh to Lynn. Although when the conversation does like proceed along, he refers to her as Miss Gittings. And I'm largely just in the interest of the narrative, kind of gonna like just summarize what this is going to be, and then we can zoom in on if there's any role play that needs to happen with this guy. But first and foremost, his name is Captain Astor Archambault, and he is the smuggler, the ne'er-do-well who has come up in the world, but is definitely not like who you like. He doesn't look like a wealthy merchant. He just looks wealthy for a smuggler. But here's the general vibe. I'm going to kind of summarize this in the interest of brevity. He is willing to put the three of you on board a ship and smuggle you out of Rouen. He will take you as far as Bordeaux, which is a city in southwestern France on the river Garonne. It's off of the Gulf of Gascony. This is at this time period in 1307. It is an English territory. Like England owns part of that coast of France, and therefore it is not under the domain of the king of the French king. That is, and that is about like 20 to 30 days by sea. Depending on certain conditions, and from Bordeaux. Since you had previously mentioned you're trying to get to Portugal to Lynn, you in conversation would find that basically Bordeaux is like roughly overland, like a week's walk to the border of the Kingdom of Navarre, which is one of the little, there's Argonne, there's Castile, Navarre, yeah, like all of those places in the Iberian Peninsula. Like basically you be able to walk from there over land, but he won't take you any farther. He can get you in and out of the English-owned territories. No, he smuggles things between them all the time. That's a no-brainer. And effectively, yes, if you wanted to be able to afford this, I'm not going to apply like a specific value to this because historically I don't know what that would be. But true to what Kevin proposed, it would be something significant enough that utilizing the Templar spy network to acquire something equivalent of value would be enough, or some other extraordinary means to come about the money, or I don't know, maybe even try to haggle him down. I don't know what this looks like. I just wanted to paint the broad strokes of the scene for you. So that's the deal. That would not take you, it would still put you a long way off from Lisbon, but it would take you several leagues south of Paris and into territory that King Philip can't do anything about right now. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be a cakewalk from there, although you already know that with anything. Thoughts in broad about characters' perspective on this, or anything that might want to come up?
Would Elias have a feeling that like that amount is something that he could ask of Alphonse now that I've sort of planted the idea in his head that like it's better for him if we are just gone? Or would that be like even for Alphonse, that's probably
No, the Leloups
rough.
probably do have enough money to cover that, but like you're not sure if you could get that much money from the Leloups, like just through like putting the heat on Alphonse, mostly just because like Alphonse and his mother don't seem to be on the best footing.
Mhm.
But I do see that as a possibility. Like the Leloups definitely do have, could help with that. It would just be a matter of how. And I'm thinking of some ideas for that, but I'll keep them to myself unless that subject is broached more closely.
Mhm. Yeah, then I think for Elia, I mean, like, I think his general demeanor is, I think as soon as we would have entered, he would have kind of like let Torben and Esteval do the talking. Because he's very much like, I dealt with like sort of the nobleman's portion of this. I don't know how to do this next part, right? Like, so I think he's just kind of like not slinking into the shadows, but he would have just sort of like quietly, speak when spoken to, but he's definitely sort of letting Esteval and Torben lead this. Um, I mean, you can tell that he's clearly not very stoked about the idea of being 30 days on a boat where he got smuggled by this entity. But he's not complaining. He knows that he has to do it, right? So it's like very much a like everything you say sounds horrifying to me, but I guess I'll just have to suffer. Yeah.
Yeah. Ben, Kevin, what are your thoughts?
Esteval has no reason to trust a noble or this like dodgy ass connection that Elia has with Alphonse. Um so I'm fine going to the spy network and you know leaning on them for funds and supplies to get us to get what we need. I will say on a meta level, if I do that, we get to 6 pursuit points, unless something happens between now and there to reduce that at all.
Oh, could I then maybe, if we want to, I guess strategically meta play this, maybe could I then say if I try to use this connection with Alphonse to lower our pursuit point first, and then you could, like, he could bribe some guards, right? He probably, with his slumming, knows some blackmail on other people and guards that could maybe make it easier for us, and then you can do that without getting us to 6 pursuit points.
I do not know how one lowers pursuit points other than the downtime action that allows us to do that. Uh,
And I'm also thinking after you instilled those ideas in him, Elias, like those nuggets, he's being like, oh, I can't further implicate myself at all. That's actually a terrible, that's yeah. So I think he, if you were to propose that to him or try to put the heat on that, he'd be like, you just told me that it like that if
Yeah, but
someone
that's
found
why
out,
they
like,
can't find us, right? Because if they
yeah.
find us, then
Mm,
he's like, because that was my point, right? Like he wants to
yeah.
help us get out without being like found out. Because if they find us, then he's in hot trouble. But as long as they don't, as long as we just vanish, it's all good. It's so totally fine.
I also got to admit, part of me on a meta level is like, if we get to 6 pursuit points and have this grand uh high action escape after we've had a few low tension sessions in Royan, is that the worst thing in the
Yeah.
world?
Also,
Torben hasn't
here's a
had
thing that like I don't necessarily know if this was like presented in the book, but I feel like it makes sense to me because the way that like the book is phrased is like, if they ever reach 2 pursuit points per Templar characters, the enemies will find you very soon. That to me speaks, it's like, oh, when you hit that, it happened, and then we reset the counter. Like, and it goes back down to 0 because like it would not make sense then. It'd be like, all right, cool. Then like what? We're just if we're any higher than that,
Yeah.
like I feel like if it makes sense, you get caught up to, and then if you manage to escape, it starts again. So it's like the pursuit points are. So I feel like if you get caught, yeah, something like your pursuers will catch up to you at an opportune, dramatic moment. But I'll also drop the pursuit point counter like back down to 1. The only
Yeah,
way you
I
can
mean
ever drop
if
it to 0 is through either downtime or using the spy network to clear it. Yeah, but it would drop down
yeah,
either
I
way.
mean if we just want to have that moment and give Corbin a cool fight
Yeah.
scene, I'm totally fine with that. In that case, I would like to maybe just like for narrative
Mhm.
reasons say that I ask Alphonse to send a letter to Florence because otherwise I feel like that role just was kind of meaningless if we don't
No, I get what
do
you mean.
anything with it.
Sure, no, I get you.
But like I'm fine to just have that narrative thing like, hey, I just want to let my cousin know that I'm not actually
Yeah,
dead.
I think I
And
think
yeah.
I think basically what the results of your test succeeded at were very much of like kind of making him feel less confident in continuing to push the envelope with you guys because it might like blow up in his face. But like so direct actions to aid you in escape might still make him squirrely. So it's like
Mhm.
not a I don't think it's necessarily me saying it's a hard no, but definitely like, ooh, that might be difficult given where the situation's at. Um, but also, yes, he could just as easily send messages to people like that. So it's open. I mean, there's a lot of like ways this could shake out if this is the path.
Yeah.
Ben, do you have
Ben,
thoughts?
what are you thinking?
I mean, I am definitely open to getting a round 2 with Hair Eye Patch, but like it didn't go great the first time. So are we ready for that?
Oh, also,
Or not, but
uh,
let's go. I'm at
just
6 stamina, so no, I'm not, but let's go.
yeah, I was gonna say just double checking. Alex, you mentioned in Discord it's Sunday, yes? So we do get
Yeah, so we had started on a Sunday, so people did regenerate stamina back.
okay. Um, I don't know if faith points come back as well.
I think it's 1 faith point per Sunday,
Yeah,
or maybe
one
all
per
of them.
Sunday, or if you pray over
Yeah, the Catholic holy
at a
site.
holy site or a holy relic.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Well,
yeah,
I don't have faith
it's
points anyway, so that doesn't affect
doesn't
me.
affect you in
But
the slightest. I will say though, something to keep in mind about these options is when it comes to traveling by sea, um, I will effectively consider because you being smuggled on a ship over such a long journey would warrant downtime stuff. So you would be able to reap some benefits of being at relative safety for around a month. Um, Something to keep in mind.
Let's do it.
I say spy network because we were
Sure.
like half unarmed. We didn't have our first gift. Also, do we have we? Is it
No,
been
that's next
forced?
session.
Okay,
It
got
would
it.
be next
Got it. Got
session.
it. We've got our gifts. I, yeah, let's poke the bear.
Okay. Then you're going to reach out to the spy network. Let's take a 10-minute break.
Okay.
With the path ahead determined, we zoom out. Esteval, you're intending then to put in word with the spy network to get the use of something, be it coin or otherwise, that will allow you to smuggle yourselves out of the city. Okay. You may do so, which will bring you all to 6 pursuit points. Additionally, Esteval, roll a d8. If you get I believe it's 5 or lower. Let me check this right now. It's a d8, and yeah, if it is a 5 or lower, the network is exposed.
Say 4.
Indeed. You put in the request. It's going to be sent up the chain, back down. There are motions within the network. The 3 of you are under cover of darkness going to meet the a minister of actually no, I think this is, we're going to make it pretty dramatic. We're going to the top. You're meeting the precept of the local network, the one who's kind of like one of the few in charge of everything, the one who reports directly back to Paris. Well, would have back when the Templars were not shattered. A foreign artifacts merchant named Percival Pierre, who deals in things like, jewelry, pottery, maybe even some like weapons from afar, things that have been, mostly used as curiosities. But under, cover of darkness in his shop, rather severely, understanding the weight of this task, gifts you something of very high value from his collections that he assures you, like, the captain will get a very good amount of money off of this, and so you could probably use this as like a collateral for the trip. And on the street outside, torchlight becomes evident, and shouting, a voice barking out, "Templars! We know you are in there." Speaking in French. You don't hear any German yet. "We will come in. We'll set fire to the building if we must. Do not give us a reason. Come out. Peacefully or in pieces."
Are the others with me?
Yeah, it's the 3 of you.
Okay.
You congregated here. Yeah.
Oh,
Just
nice.
look at Leah and Torben, and I suppose it was a matter of time. We'll look at the precepts. And say, we'll buy you time to escape. Bone whatever you need to.
Yeah, he's already getting his things to go to like to flee out the back if he must. But like, yeah, we can say with no uncertainty that like the network busted. Like we're able to follow you back here. Who knows what else they backtrack? Like the network is effectively has to dissolve, or else things will get real bad.
Yep.
Elia, you should go with him.
Why?
You have the cup.
I will not abandon either of you.
Just kind of on a meta level, but I think Esteval will also sort of echo this sentiment. We need to get to the docks, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So this is not necessarily a fight to the death. We need to get through them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which means we need the cup.
I think Elia will look at Torben very seriously and he will simply say, "Do you ask it of me?"
The cup is more important than anything else. Yes.
His jaw clenches. His eyes in this weird light seem almost like they're a little red, but he nods and he will run.
You're fleeing out the back.
Yes, with the cup.
Torben and Esteval, what do the two of you do?
You can go with him if you want. I won't blame you. He will need help.
Again, just checking in. Elia is planning on going to the docks. Wait, so got it. Uh, at this point, it's all or nothing. I'm not going. I'll hold them off as long as I can. You're right. The cup is the most important thing, which means we need to buy Elia time.
Yes. Let's go then.
If there are other things than what we've come to believe, I trust you'll put in a good word for me with them.
The best.
Esteban will like shoulder his crossbow, and if there's a vantage point, we're gonna find it.
Out on the street is a large contingent of men at arms, city guards, rank and file soldiers, upwards of 60, maybe 70. At their head, the one who is barking is a man wearing the livery of the king, not just a knight of the king, a knight commander, someone who is either a lord of influence or an experienced veteran. Either way, someone who has the capability to take you in a fight. Elias, as you dart out the back, you are greeted by a wall of these guards and soldiers who have also surrounded the place. You actually see that Percival Pierre knocked on the ground, being manhandled by one of them, just held, not life threatened, but like being seized, being arrested. That these soldiers were they've surrounded the place. They are thorough in this moment. You can see some of them holding torches. They look at you as you run out. Some weapons are drawn. Esteval, you search for a place to maybe have a vantage point up above as the scope of the situation is unfolding. And Torben, what is it you're doing?
I mean, they said they'll come in if we don't come out, so the door is a good funnel.
Oh, so you feel the heft of your weapon in your hand. The orders continue to get barked from outside, and then eventually you just hear, very simply, storm the place. The door is kicked in, and as the first French soldiers rush in, they are greeted by Torben and Esteval. But around back, Elias is facing his own trials. I think we will end at that dramatic moment this time and actually kick off with combat next time, because I'm not certain we can do this entire combat in the time we have left. And I don't want to end in the middle of it. it'll give me more time to think about like zones and stuff we can have for this confrontational moment. But yes, it'll also be our 8th session, which means you will all be able to take gifts, and it's every 4 sessions, which does mean you can take it technically before the combat even begins. So you'll get those benefits in the lead up to the fight. I guess with that all in mind, though, let's go to stars and wishes. Whoever would like to go first.
I'll go. I like Lynn. Lynn was great. I'm hoping that perhaps she becomes a bit of a recurring terrible smuggler contact. The scene with Elia and the Alphonse and his family was great. Nice to see that Elia wasn't entirely bought in by the noble flashiness. And I am surprised by, not me, Torben would be very surprised by Esteval's commitment to stay there, knowing that Torben is hoping to get to the docks, but not exactly convinced he will. And that was a nice little moment. The callback to "Do you ask this of me?" Jazzy was great. Very well played. Wishes. This is going to be epic one way or another, so we're looking forward to getting to that fight.
I also, yeah, loved the throwback to "Do you ask this of me?" Just 10 out of 10, no notes. Always love a good throwback. Um, I also really enjoyed Lynn. That whole scene was fun. Getting to mistranslate her stuff was just a cute little joy. Um, and yeah, I will second the wish that she becomes either recurring or I don't know. Or if not, then then it's a fond memory I'll have of Royan. Um, I I liked how much of this session was the Templars having opinions about each other. Uh, from all of the uh from just like talking about Elia and Torben being like, "Oh yeah, I can't just like leave you alone with Elia," and then Elia just firing right back with they're uncouth and they're just poor little slum rats, probably talking about who knows what. That was a really fun moment as well. And yeah, I can't wait to see this fight shake out. I don't know if we're intended to survive fights where it's because of the double pursuit points. But at the same time, I'm also excited to see the next leg of our journey and adventure. We've been in Rouen a good healthy stretch, and I'm eager to see what the journey is like, get some advances under us, and yeah, and see what else the game has to offer. So that's what I got.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and just jump on that. This segues off of one of the things I was going to talk about anyway. So I'll start with that. That yeah, like it feels like with we're going into the 8th session after this, like 8 sessions under our belt, 2 gifts, like the sort of the stakes as we've set them and like the tone of things thus far, it feels like the right pace of like, all right, like the 8th advance is coinciding right with, and now we're getting the fuck out of France, like making like significant distance, and I'm having this very dramatic moment come about. It felt like very narratively satisfying, and I felt like it was just a really cool moment all around. Some specific stars I want to throw out there. Yeah, I'm going to echo the fact that like the "Do you ask this of me" moment, fuck, yeah, it's emotionally compelling. A resonant beat. How dare you? That was delightful. Very emotional. Yes, star to Kevin that for Esteval being like talking about how you translated like, oh yeah, she wishes you were in the city for longer. That was a great moment, hilarious, a rare moment of Esteval being a little bit of a scoundrel that got to poke through there and teasing on a friend. That was really good. And like Also, I will start that conversation between Esteval and Torben at the end there, being like, put in a good word for me. That was really fun. And yeah, I also just love getting to see Torben be like, I like this woman, like just kind of being like into, not, I don't know if into her is the right word, but just the way that scene played out. I'm always very endeared to Torben, but also love that you kind of called out Elias and his bullshit. That was a great moment as well. And meanwhile, Esteval just in the background holding his cards close to his chest. I think that there's a lot of good simmering tension. And yeah, that was just a fun time all around. I'm also very much looking forward to getting out there on the seas, which will be this will be narrative. Like it is, time will pass and then, we'll pick up from there. But I'm excited for the next few legs of the journey, and seeing what else the game has to offer, especially because like you are all effectively leaving the proverbial bubble I had in mind of like where things are going to be kind of more mundane and are stepping into territory that might be even more mystical. Some things I have planned. Yeah, I'm looking forward to what will go wrong next and how tensions will continue to develop. As for this upcoming immediate combat, I wouldn't say the game says anything about expectation of survival. It just is a dramatic confrontation with the forces pursuing you. So whatever that means, I guess you'll find out more when we kick things off. I'm looking forward to this combat for reasons I won't get into here, just because again we have mobs, but but also I think it's the last true combat we had really was like, okay, cool, you guys got your asses handed to you, and I have a feeling that for at least a chunk of this, it will be like fairly like, okay, no, cool, the Templars are badasses, but it will at least get like some action-packed kills in there before if anything else happens. But I don't know. I'm not necessarily stacking the deck one way or the other. Well, hey, play the game however you play it, because some of us do only have like 6 stamina, as Jazzy's pointing out in the chat. So I guess we'll see what happens. No, I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah, stars. I Esteban was such a little dick slash chaos gremlin this session. Like he was just like the whole time I was sitting there like Jesus Christ, Esteban. Like just mistranslating and like sowing chaos for absolutely no reason, being like really like just bludgeoning Lynn with like, do you even know how to do your fucking job? Like, that was just a vibe that he was giving me the whole time, which was very funny. Um, and then like yeah, then with Elia, when Elia was basically like, "Hey, I need some emotional support," being like, "Bitch, not from me though," which was great. Just very, very funny. Yeah, just I don't know, everything you said from Esteban felt like it really showed a different side, and he's been like so sort of at the down low where the drama is, and today I was like, oh yeah, I see where he's gonna bring it. I see what his deal is, and I love it. Um, yeah, Ben, I thought that dignity jab was absolutely fantastic. And with Elliot just being like, I don't get it. I did nothing wrong, so that was definitely not directed at me. Like I did what you asked. You didn't want me to wear the Templar outfit, and I am not. So, like, obviously no problem. Um, yeah, and I liked him just like kind of, I just imagined him like just kind of standing there, like, being like this big burly brooding man, which was very funny during that whole scene. And then at the end, like I could just feel like his eagerness to be like, oh, this is my fucking moment, and none of you are gonna take this from me. And then still having sort of that presence of mind of being like, Elia, you need to run. And I do wonder if there's like some part of it that knows that Elia wouldn't let him die. And he's like, I gotta get him out of here because this is none of that heroic saving me. I need to win or die, and Elia needs to not be here because he's not gonna let me. Um, but also, of course, he does have the cup, and that is kind of important. So I thought that was very fun. Alex, yeah, I loved just like the whole dinner scene. Like I could just picture it so vividly, and it was really fun to sort of put Elia in this very different situation where we just saw like this previous life, like kind of coming back with a vengeance and him immediately falling back into those trappings. And like, it's interesting to me because it seems like Elia would have made a much better noble than he's making a Templar, which is funny to me and very tragic. Which I think is sort of the point, right? That's sort of been the theme that we're playing at. Like he's trying so hard, but he doesn't get it. Oh yeah, that's another star for Ben. The For all the studying of this book you do, you should read it again or you should take a closer look or something like that. I thought that was a because also like that's the jab that's really gonna get to Elia. Like, whoa, how dare you call me not a good Jesus boy? That's not how this is gonna work. Um, yeah, wishes. Yeah, I'm really interested to see like sort of how we're gonna do a battle on two fronts. I think that's interesting. That's different from what we've done before, and how that's going to differ. Um, so like that's at first, I mean, like narratively and meta reason, I was like, no, I can't go anywhere else. And I was like, you know what? I can actually. I can do whatever I want. And like, Torben asked it, so we have to do it. Um, yeah, so I'm very interested to see like sort of that battle on two fronts. And I am very interested to see if with the downtime if there is anything that Elia can do to sort of reconnect with his two friends, or if we're going further on this road to isolation. Because I feel like Elia has been like very, very isolated by his birth, by his Beaumain thing, by everything. And my wish is to see which path his Templar companions are going to push him on. Is it like there is a place for you here, or is it like, no, we actually really don't want you. You just have the cup, and you're like, in the order, so we gotta kind of hang out with you. And I think either of those are interesting. So yeah, those are my wishes.
Any other stars or wishes? Then I will bring our recording to an end and see everyone next time.